If you've been on the internet at all, ever, then more likely than not, you've heard someone ask the question posed in the title, can he beat Goku? And the answer, more likely than not, is simply no, he can't beat Goku. Any strong character to be introduced into a cartoon or anime must face this question at some point. Most recently, Omni-Man, Satoru Gojo, and Saitama all have been another of Goku's victims just because they are perceived as strong. For the record, I don't care what you personally think about Goku versus any of those characters. The majority opinion is that Goku would wipe the floor with those guys. This meme transcends even just fiction, with Goku coming to hospital beds to fight cancer for other patients, or fight the patient who beat cancer because they must be pretty strong. And there have always been multiple characters who get more fame and attention to their anime simply because they have a character that can beat Goku. But what is it about Goku? Why is Goku the benchmark for all these characters? And why is it that so many characters simply can't beat him? As for why we pick Goku, I'll answer in a minute, but for why they can't beat him, I've narrowed that down to 3 main points: skill, speed, and power. While that may seem pretty basic, that's because it is, and most people can't keep up with all 3, even if they can keep up in one area, but I'll elaborate on that in the actual video. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. I'm extremely close to 100k and I'd like to hit it soon, so I'd really appreciate it. Okay, on to the first question: why pick Goku? Dragon Ball is, for some reason, easier to believe when they're doing something impressive. Actually, saying for some reason is kind of dishonest. The reason is extremely simple. Dragon Ball shows defeats that most anime only imply. In Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, there are 2 separate occasions where the moon just simply does not benefit a character in that current moment, so they literally just blow it up. And in Piccolo's example, this is done with a casual ki blast from one hand. One obvious thing you can compare this to is Naruto's movie The Last. While it might be true that Naruto and Toneri are both flying around with solar system level power, or even universal in some people's eyes, Toneri's entire plan revolves around crashing the moon into the earth, and his most recognizable feat is cutting the moon in half. We're talking a feat worse than Master Roshi within the first 55 chapters of the manga, and what Piccolo could do casually in the Saiyan Saga versus Naruto after the final arc of his show. Even with Kaguya, you kinda have the same thing when Zetsu claims she's going to rewrite the time-space and erase the current one with a giant True Seeker orb. Even that feat is simply implied and not actually shown. Is that a bad thing? No, not really. It's not like the story is damaged by this not happening, it's just something that's nowhere near as impressive as it otherwise could have been. This next reason sort of builds off the last one, but Goku's power is something very easy to understand, and he has some of the most generally cool displays of power. When Goku is fighting Frieza, Frieza throws a gigantic energy blast at him, and Goku simply punches it into outer space, and the resulting damage done is a planet exploding in the distance, completely by accident. And what I mean by this power being easy to understand, it's simply Goku points his hand somewhere and destruction happens. Whether it be punting planet-destroying blasts like with Frieza, or his fight with Beerus breaking the universe itself, this could even go down to how hard Goku convinces you that he is to get rid of, or basically how resilient he is. Goku is training for Namek, tanking his own Kamehamehas to the chest while under heavy gravity, and he outright says while taunting Frieza that he can't be harder to get rid of than a planet, when he's literally being harder to get rid of than a planet. I think another reason why we pick Goku is that it's told to us pretty clearly that Goku likes to fight, and he enjoys it very, very much. But it goes beyond that, to the point Goku has a genetic need to battle. So in a lot of the cases of these seemingly strong opponents, it's easy to imagine that Goku would have a fun time fighting them, even if he would beat them quickly. Last reason I can think of as to why we pick Goku should be extremely obvious, but he's the face we're all familiar with and the most popular. You could mention Goku's name to virtually anybody and they'll know who you're talking about. So when you're entering these kinds of discussions, Goku is an easy way to do so because he guarantees a reaction. Now, on to the main three reasons why they can't beat Goku that I mentioned in the intro. I'd like to start with skill. Goku's skill is something both over and underrated, and if I had to pick one, I'd say it's underrated. While I can't blame people for thinking Dragon Ball is just a punch fest with giant power levels as opposed to skilled martial artists duking it out at high speeds, Dragon Ball very much so is extremely skilled martial artists fighting at incredible speeds or using at times make-believe martial arts. But Goku has been trained in very intense ways, not only to handle high power, but highly skilled opponents. Goku in the Dragon Ball Z manga is frequently regarded as the best martial artist on Earth, a fact that's repeated at the beginning of most of the volumes of the Dragon Ball manga. This is a series where not only real martial arts exist, but fake martial arts as well. During the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, Master Roshi, under the guise of Jackie Chun, fights against Man Wolf, who gets completely outplayed while the former isn't even trying. Roshi then states that the difference in their skills is simply too great, and Man Wolf's response is that he's a 30th level black belt in Kenpo. This level of skill does not exist in the real world. The highest level of Kenpo we have is a 10th level. This guy is 3 times more skilled than that, and Master Roshi is clowning him like he's nothing while not even using some of the more broken techniques that he knows. And Goku, being the best martial artist on Earth, has to be superior to even Master Roshi. And this is just talking about normal fighting skill. Goku, through training with Mr. Popo, learned to see without his eyes just by feeling the movement in the atmosphere. He demonstrates this in his fight with Tien, where he says exactly what Tien's clone is doing behind him even though he can't see it. From Korin, Goku learned the standard too many wasted movements is bad thing that you hear in almost every media that has to do with fighting. But the point is, Goku has done the training and has the statements to be recognized as an amazing fighter, even though due to animation budget and or Toei's lack of creativity, it can seem at times that he's just throwing really fast punches. Toei's repeated animation would have you thinking that at times Goku just does the same punch 3 times in a row, even though the enemy keeps dodging it. It really just makes no sense. It's similar to how people think the swordsmen in Bleach have no real skill and are just really strong people that happen to hold swords. This is one difference between the Dragon Ball Super anime and manga that I respect the anime just a bit more than the manga for. Even aside from the problem I mentioned just a moment ago, the anime keeps intact that Goku is a great martial artist when he's fighting Caulifla. They actually attribute Goku's success against her, even though he's super tired, to his overall combat skill. The manga takes Goku down a different route, basically saying that through his gaining of power he's gotten over the course of his life, he's sort of forgot his skill in his training and tries to replace it with just raw power. But no, he's actually extremely skilled as a martial artist and a real fighter. This is why when you see those posts that have Goku versus Naruto versus Eren versus Ichigo and other MCs and it's asking if they had no superpowers, who would win, you should just back Goku every time. Because just like I said in the intro, they can't keep up in all 3 areas I mentioned. Even if they can keep up in more than one, take speed out, take power out of the equation, and Goku is still more skilled. Speaking of which, I want to talk about power next. I've already kind of gone over this a bit when I was talking about the believability of all this power these characters wield, but yeah, these guys pretty much just fight with planet destroying power all the time. A literal misfire on the side of the good guys or bad guys could spell destruction for the entire planet or even a good chunk of it. Piccolo casually destroyed the moon with a power level of around 400, and he shot it from Earth. He wasn't even anywhere close to it. You want to know some character that should realistically be able to do the same thing but even better? The Cybermen. These stupid little green idiots that Krillin just one-shot when he got mad enough, and it goes without saying, all these guys are much weaker than Goku. Let me put this into perspective just a little bit. If a Cyberman stood directly in the middle of Sukuna's malevolent shrine, it would stand there and take absolutely no damage from anything Sukuna throws at it, and be 100% fine until the domain is over. Most of the time, if a character is strong, them versus Saiyan Saga Goku, or in extreme cases, Namek Saga Goku, will be contentious. You hardly ever see a character versus Buu Saga Goku be brought up in any of these conversations, And that's because it's mainly where no one relevant can touch Goku. Let's take Cell, for example. A very simple claim of destruction, Cell claims he's going to blow away the entire solar system with his Kamehameha wave. Gohan beats that power, and then Goku is stated to be stronger than Gohan in the Buu saga. So naturally, he should be capable of the same thing, but it can get even more crazy when watching the Z anime, which is what most people did. Goku is literally hundreds of times stronger than what the manga implies. After the Cell arc, but before the Buu arc, Goku fights in another tournament called the Otherworld Tournament against a man named Pikkon. Pikkon is a man who one-shot and blitzed Cell with his weights on, and then Goku was around the same level as Pikkon while he was still just in his base form. This would make Goku stronger than Cell in base form, and even higher using the relevant multipliers for Super Saiyan. A 50 times boost for Super Saiyan, a 2 times boost from there for Super Saiyan 2, and a 4 times boost from there for Super Saiyan 3, and you have Goku at 400 times solar system level. A good example of how destructive power like this can be used is found within Kid Buu. When Supreme Kai is telling Goku and the others about how horrible Buu is, we get a visual showing that Buu had actually destroyed an entire galaxy. This will also be relevant when I talk about speed, but for now, Goku should be around Buu's level of strength. It can be argued Kid Buu was somewhat holding back on Goku, but it's never implied to be by some crazy amount in the first place, and I think it's pretty fair to say regardless that Buu is trying harder on Goku than he does when he's just randomly blowing things up, because he actually wants to fight Goku and his destruction is fairly casual. Goku in Dragon Ball Super obviously far eclipses power like this, with him and Beerus during their fight almost bringing an end to the entire universe by simply clashing fists with one another, and that's just the first arc of the show. Goku goes on to get multiple thousands of times stronger after that. He happens to unlock Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, and he can multiply that up to 20 times in the various forms of Ultra Instinct. I would go through like I did with solar system level Goku and count how many crazy times over universal I think Goku is, but not only do I think the number would be crazy ridiculous and not accurate to how strong Goku actually is, but admittedly, that's just my own personal bias. I think saying Goku is billions of times stronger than Universal is just a bit ridiculous. This kind of goes without saying, but these crazy amounts of power that Goku can dish out, he can also take on his body, meaning he's also insanely durable, which, leading back to what I said about him in the intro, even if someone is more skilled than Goku or faster than him, they simply can't keep up with power in order to win. And if someone is just faster than Goku, since he's more skilled and since he's just outright stronger, it's going to be considerably harder on them to take him down or just outright impossible. So Goku's got the skill, he's got the strength, but what about the speed? Goku has feats of being light speed even as far back as when he was a kid during the 22nd World Tournament. The manga and anime have different interpretations for this specific feat, but the general idea is Goku outran the light from Tien's solar flare and grabbed Master Roshi's glasses before the light hit him, but the manga doesn't actually show you when Goku started to move. The anime shows Goku starting to move after the solar flare was launched, but the light has also already reached him, which makes no sense because he should have been blinded if that was really the case. Being generous to the series, you could see the general idea they were going for and simply say the feat is legit, but it still comes off just weird, at least in the anime. Like I said, for the manga, it's a bit more ambiguous. In the scene I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Kid Buu destroying a galaxy, I mentioned this would be relevant when I bring up speed as well. That's because Kid Buu is shown doing this destruction planet by planet, and we physically see the galaxy collapse on screen. Someone could argue this is a time lapse of events and not actually happening in real time. Even if it was to take Kid Buu an hour to do this, he'd still be over 900 million times the speed of light to accomplish something like this. But not only does the Dragon Ball anime simply not do that and normally slows things down so that we can see them, I'm going to say this is happening in real time and the galaxy falls in just mere seconds. So realistically speaking, he'd be around 667 billion times faster than the speed of light. This obviously only gets worse when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, or I guess I should say better, but it doesn't really matter. Most people can't even bother to be put up against Goku in his weaker forms. Gaining access to a move where he not only gets billions of times faster and stronger, but is able to dodge and attack without thinking just widens the gap even further. For example, based on how Unlimited Void is described, Goku in Ultra Instinct, since he isn't thinking to move his limbs and fight, should be able to completely ignore it and fight anyway. Of course, once Ultra Instinct turns off, he'd be brain dead, but Goku in Dragon Ball Super is already extremely stupid anyway, so that wouldn't really matter. Skill, power, speed, regardless of what MC it is, aside from the random MC from the one isekai, the omnipotent that could beat Goku, they can't beat Goku, because they simply can't keep up with him in any of those aspects. And if they can't keep up in one, they can't keep up in the other two. And if they can keep up in two, they can't keep up in one. So it always goes in Goku's favor.